So if you guys are ready to go, we can go.
All right, let's
Ready.
do it.
All right. So this is 18 Victoria. It was a Thursday. No, wait. It was a Tuesday, not a Thursday, because I was still a couple of days from getting paid and I was broke. And I was in the Noodle House because the Noodle House has that great Tuesday deal for dinner, like, for college kids that were broke, and me, apparently, in his 30s and broke. And shitty noodles were all I really could afford. So it was a Tuesday. And the Noodle House had a TV running, and it's usually tuned to ESPN or something, sports, because I guess that's what college kids watch when they eat shitty, cheap noodles. And it was something like really boring. Something, I don't know, deluge, maybe, winter sports. And I had a lot on my mind that day. Catherine and I had this completely stupid fight, this disagreement over who was going to get Dad's Encyclopedia Britannica. He had this beautiful old set that we both adored. I mean, like, we were nerdy kids, the three of us. And we'd read those damn things like they were Highlights magazine. Articles on malaria and Malaysia and malapropism, casual reading for fun. And anyway, Catherine and I both wanted the set, and Dad didn't specify who'd get them. And we were emotionally raw by this point. Everything with Stephen, all that bullshit, we just sort of went at each other over these encyclopedias. Catherine said I was being a bully. I'd already been given the house. And I said she was being a martyr. She already had a house and a husband. And I had, I mean, honestly, at that point, I had no money, no place to live, a job that sucked the life out of me, no boyfriend anymore because he met someone on the internet, and this kind of continent-sized, low self-esteem. So could you just not be a bitch and give me the house and the fucking encyclopedias, which were, if I could point out, already in the house? And she called me selfish and self-involved, and I called her judgmental and superior, and we rehashed it. We hadn't thought about it in years because that's what you do. And she hung up on me and wouldn't answer my calls or texts. So I was sitting in the Noodle House being pissed about the noodles and the encyclopedias and Catherine and Stephen. Oh, I mean, Stephen hadn't even come to the funeral. He called me once to make sure I was okay, and he'd sent an email to Catherine, an email. And I get that he's got his own life in Denver and that he hasn't really seen any of us since he was 18, but our dad died. You could, participate. And losers are losing on the television set, and the noodles are kind of gross. And I think I even said to myself, maybe even out loud, my God, could this day get any worse? And illusion gets interrupted by the news, national news. So, you get that little tinge in your stomach. Oh shit, who blew up what now? Who went shooting in a mall somewhere? What terrible thing has happened that we'll all have to obsess over for the next few weeks? And the anchor comes on, and he's got this very solemn look, and he says slowly, kind of with this stentorian thing going on, that something very important is happening. And he's going to introduce this guy from NASA.
Here's my thing about the encyclopedias. And my brother Ben is a very good person. I love him. He is my brother. But when it comes to being aware of things like justice and fairness and being a part of things being just and or fair, Ben has a problem with recognizing that fairness sometimes means he can't have what he wants. That fairness is not exactly Ben-centric, which is sort of how he views the universe and everything in it. Ben is interested in Ben. And if he wants the Britannica, then he doesn't understand how anyone else could want the Britannica. And he's got the house. And I'm like, Ben, I am asking for books. Books you can come over and see anytime. It's not like I'll take them and burn them or hide them in a vault in the Himalayas or something. We live 5 minutes from each other. So my thing about the encyclopedias is Ben's got a house to remember Dad by. A whole goddamn house. And I just want the books to put on my shelf and to remind me of when we were kids, and then acted like I was asking him to remove a testicle and eat it. This completely disproportionate response to a simple request. So I tried calling Stephen. It is a very stupid thing for me to do. Masochistic, just. But I don't know. I just thought that's what I should do. I should call Stephen. And he didn't answer, of course. And Ben is texting me every few minutes during all of this. I can't believe you hung up on me. Why did you hang up on me? I want to finish the conversation about the encyclopedias, Catherine. Are you there, Catherine? Themes and variations. I tried Stephen again, left a message this time. Stephen, this is Catherine. I still haven't heard from you since your email last week, and I'm really hoping you'll call or something, because I don't know, Stephen, because you should probably call me or Ben or anyone, because it's the right thing to do. And then Ben's now left a message on my voicemail.
Catherine, seriously, we're going to do this silent no communication thing? I mean, if I were being unreasonable about the encyclopedias, I could understand you being a harpy right now, but I'm totally justified in wanting to keep it. And you are being utterly unreasonable. And if you use me getting the house one more time as an excuse to deny me what is rightfully mine, I swear my noodles are here. Call me.
And I call Stephen one more time because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm not angry. The nature of what I'm feeling is an anger, because anger feels hot and prickly, and it congests your ability to feel compassion for the people you're feeling feelings about. And this wasn't anger. I'm not angry at Ben. I'm not angry at Stephen. I'm not angry at my father for being dead too soon. What I'm feeling is this immense sort of incomprehension. I don't understand. And Ben is still texting me, and now he's complaining about how lousy the noodles are at the noodle house. And I just want Stephen to call me, because incomprehensible is emailing your sister a terse little note.
Catherine, thank you for the phone call. I won't make it out for the funeral, but I'll try to get home as soon as I'm able. Stephen.
I mean, your father dies, and the best you can do is, thank you for the phone call. I won't make it out for the funeral, but I'll try to get home as soon as I am able. And Dan starts calling me from the kitchen. Dan's my husband. Dan's calling me. Catherine, come see this. And I'm just like, no, I don't want to come see this. I can't process another thing right now. My father dropped dead in the middle of teaching a class. My younger brother is a raging narcissist. My older brother hasn't seen any of us in almost 20 years, and I'm just trying to get my hands on a fucking set of encyclopedias that no one will ever use because of the goddamn internet. No, Dan, I don't want to come see this. And then he's there at the door with a very weird look on his face, and I just sort of snap. What, baby? What is so important that I can't just have half an hour to myself right now? And he doesn't say anything. He just turns on the TV in the home office, and there's a scientist guy talking.
You know what I was doing when I found out my father died? Jacking off. Watching porn. I have my dick in my hand. I hear this little text message thing go off. Think it's Annie. I check it. It's Ben. Stephen, Catherine's freaking out. She's been calling you. Dad died. Call her. Like, great. The very last thing I want to make some fucked up middle bridge between his jacking off and my dad being dead, but there it is. I finished. You know, I'm not a quitter. So it was a Tuesday, I guess. It had to be, because the funeral had been that Sunday before, and I completely avoided it. Just, yeah, it was shitty of me. I know. I recognize it, but I didn't even call either one after he died. I think Ben, I texted maybe. Maybe we talked for like a minute or two, but I couldn't talk to Catherine. Couldn't bring myself to. I emailed her this apology. this vague sort of halfway promise to come when I could. I know that sucks. That's a kind of emotional brutality, but the family thing is complicated with us, or at least it's complicated with me. And in some ways, maybe it was a kindness just sending an email instead of inserting myself back into the dynamic when it had been so tough. So it was the Tuesday after they buried him, and I'd flown out on the Monday. I got home that Monday afternoon, rented a room for a few nights on the side of town they didn't bother going to, and I was sitting on the ground next to Dad's headstone. I could tell that Catherine had made most of the decisions because there was a real lack of maudling death excess at the grave, which is her thing, you know. She's tough. She's generous and open-hearted and all that, but really tough. And everything was simple and tasteful and not too much. And very Catherine. I appreciated that. Anyway, I was sitting there on the ground, just thinking about Dad and trying to figure out how I was going to navigate visiting Ben and Catherine without everything turning into a shit show. And sort of laughing a little to myself because, you know, thinking about my dad being dead, I'm a little bit thinking about jacking off because now those two things are, you know, Catherine calls. I don't answer. She calls again. I don't answer. She leaves a message.
Stephen, this is Catherine. I still haven't heard from you since your email last week, and I'm really hoping that you'll call or something because, I don't know, Stephen, because you should probably call me or Ben or anyone because it's the right thing to do.
And Ben sends me this weird text.
She wants the fucking Britannica. Fuck her.
I'm just like, I got the hell out of here 20 years ago to never have to be in the middle of this shit again. I left. I got the fuck out. I did the thing I was supposed to do to save myself. And yet here I am, again, a victim, once again, of the gravitational pull of a dysfunctional family. Sitting on the ground next to my father's headstone thinking about the last time I whacked it. Life is profoundly unfair. So it's a Tuesday and no one knows I'm here and I'm in a cemetery feeling conflicted in a way I've never been conflicted before. And this kid walks over, maybe 14, at most 16. And he's a typical teenage boy, a little on the thin side. He's got this energy that's weird. He's kind of jacked up a little. At first, I think he's high on something, a little tweaker kid, thinking maybe I have some shit for him. But there's something in his face that's too normal, you know, too good kid for him to be on something. And he just comes over and stands there for a second. He doesn't say anything. And I'm like, you need something? And he says, can you fucking believe it? And I say, believe what? And the kid tilts his head a little, confused, you know, the way a puppy does when you say something odd, a tone he doesn't get. He said, we're all going to die. That's what.
So the NASA guy starts talking.
An object that scientists have been observing closely for several years.
Its trajectory has been observed in recent months to change.
The new trajectory for this object.
Apparently a giant rock the size of a few city blocks hurtling through space.
Now, they've observed, has this object on a path to collide with Earth.
Apart from the catastrophic losses that will no doubt occur at the point of impact,
that's the language they use for this.
Scientists are predicting that this could trigger the start of an extinction event.
Extinction event. That's the phrase that really stuck out to me.
I didn't say anything to this kid, and he got a little agitated. You heard me? The news just said there's a big fucking rock in space coming for us. We're all fucking space dust, dude. And I don't know, just the last thing hit me in an odd way. Maybe it was the dude, maybe it was the space dust thing. I started laughing. The kid got pissed off. Flipped me the bird, fuck off, asshole, and he was gone. And there was a little text message sound.
Stephen, call me, please. This space thing has got Catherine apoplectic, seriously.
Then my phone rings. It's Catherine. I answer.
I have this memory of when the three of us were kids. Stephen is 4 years older than I am, and Catherine and I are just a year apart. So when this thing happened, this thing I remember, Stephen was 15, I guess, high school. So I'm 11. I'm still a kid. I still adore my older brother, and I want nothing at all to do with my sister. And it's August, the end of August, the last little sliver of summer before we go back to school. And it's terribly late, middle of the night, or I don't know, maybe like 10 o'clock. I don't know. I was 11. And Steven comes into my room and wakes me up. He's fully dressed, got a stupid baseball cap on his head, flashlight in his hand, his school backpack on, and he's shaking me and telling me to be quiet, like to hurry, to get some clothes on. Catherine's changing and we're going. We're all going. And I'm half asleep, barely conscious, and I'm asking him, where? Where are we going? And Steven gets very close to my face and holds the flashlight up between us so the shadows are stark like ghosts or monsters. And he whispers, Antarctica. And something flashes in his eyes, and I believe him completely. Should I bring a coat? He never answers, just yanks me out of bed, and I'm scrambling, putting on my play jeans and a shirt, and Catherine comes in, her backpack on, and a scarf wrapped around her neck, and Steven tells her not to make so much noise. we have to be. We have to be making an enormous racket. My parents must have known the three of us were up to something, listening at the door or up to the wall, because how can my father know? I'm mad at myself. And I get everything on, and Steven tells me to take my 5 favorite things, just 5, and put them in my new school backpack, because that's all we could take to Antarctica with us, 5 things, and make it quick. 5 things. So I picked my 5 favorite things. My teddy bear, my Ramona Quimby book, my cassette tape of Madonna's first solo album, a notebook I'd been using as a sketch pad for my drawings, and a broken pocket watch that belonged to our next meeting. I shoved them all into my backpack, and basically as soon as the zipper is zipped, Steven's hand is on my arm and he's yanking me out of the house. Catherine in the other hand holding the flashlight, and we're out the back door into the nighttime, hot, humid, this thick, quiet stillness. And we grew up with this patch of trees behind our house at 11. I thought it was some kind of forest, really just a little patch of trees to keep clear our neighborhood for the next. And we're headed into them. Steven pulling us along with this almost insane sense of purpose. And he's telling us, when we get to Antarctica, we won't have any responsibilities and we can do whatever we want and we won't need school or church or weekend chores. And I am struggling to keep up with him. He's older and I was a fat little kid, still half asleep, getting a little scared of this, a little scared of him. And he's just going on about how things will be so much better when we get to Antarctica. And this whole time, Catherine isn't saying much of anything. And Steven's reached this part in the Antarctica diatribe where he's explaining to us that when we get there, we'll have a house made of ice and how cool that will be. And Catherine finally speaks up, finally. And she says, nobody actually lives in Antarctica. And there's one of those moments where you wish real life was more like a TV show because it was that record scratch moment, when everybody stops what they're doing, turns to listen, like. And we're stopped in the middle of this suburban forest with our backpacks full of bullshit and no idea what the fuck we're doing. And Steven just stares at her for what feels like an hour, just stares. And Catherine gets Catherine. Nobody lives in Antarctica, Steven. It's not inhabited by people. Maybe some scientists in a tent somewhere, but you don't live there. Polar bears live there and penguins, but not many. It's uninhabitable. Why would we go to Antarctica? And Steven says, don't you hate where you are? And then there's this noise from behind us where we come from, this noise that sounded like animals. And Catherine starts crying, like, I'm serious, instantaneous tears, waterworks. And we start to see these flashlight beams crisscrossing the darkness, getting sliced by branches and trees, and our names faintly called out. And Steven kneels down to me, gets right up in my face again, holds the flashlight up between us, making us monsters all over again. And he says, he's going to tell you I'm crazy or wrong because he wants us to stay stuck here forever, die here. But I'd take us to Antarctica, Benji. I promise I would. And that muffled voice becomes Dad's voice. And suddenly he's there with us in a robe. Catherine runs to him crying and wailing about how Stephen scared her and how he was making us run away to a place with polar bears. And then we're home again, unpacking our 5 favorite things and getting back into bed and going to sleep. Like it never happened.
There are 3 things that happen when people find out the world's going to end. 1, people deny it completely, pretend it doesn't exist, or fabricate wild, exceedingly implausible conspiracies and theories about why the world isn't ending, so that no one has to think about why the fucking world is ending. 2, people buy guns and spam and a shit ton of Aquafina and prepare for, I don't know, some Michael Bay action flick, American Militia versus the Asteroid, where some backwards hick from Montana is, in his mind, Bruce Willis, and there's a way to stop a giant space rock with a Winchester you got at a gun show. And 3, just get on with it. And the world was always going to end, you fucking idiots, one way or another. There's a last day. Now, we know it's 3 weeks from now. And I guess there's a 4th way, which I advocate. Sort of combines all 3 elements of them anyway. You rent a hotel room 15 minutes from the house you grew up in, buy as much alcohol as your visa can handle, and drink yourself to death. Cheers.
So basically, we find out this object, 18 Victoria, that's what they're calling the asteroid. It's the naming system. I think it sounds like a suburban address. 18 Victoria has been on the radar, so to speak, for a while. It's a near-Earth asteroid that was discovered about 15 years ago. And they knew then, when they discovered it, that it could possibly pose a threat to us, the Earth, which to me seems alarming enough, but they weren't sure. So they watched it for about 14 years, and a year ago they realized, oh, yeah, it certainly will hit the Earth. Okay, what now? And the what now was apparently a year's worth of backroom meetings and extensive long-range planning on the part of global governments and agencies on how and when to tell everyone else that 18 Victoria was going to hit us. And it basically came down to one guy from NASA interrupting Dancing with the Stars to say, hey, asteroid coming. It's big. We're fucked.
Cable news is much more palatable when you're drunk, especially breaking news, which for the most part boils down to the asteroid is 10 minutes closer. The asteroid is 20 minutes closer. The asteroid's 30 minutes closer. Let's ask Piers Morgan what he thinks about extinction. I keep it on the local news mostly. It's much funnier. Let's ask a local resident who failed the ACT the most number of times what she thinks about the asteroid. Oh, sweet Jesus, it's going to be big up in the sky, and I'd be terrified. She gets me through another bottle of vodka and at least half of the afternoon.
It reminded me a little of what happened after 9/11. The first day, paralysis, just sitting there in front of the television, watching the news, dissecting the information piece by piece by piece, doing nothing of your normal life. Because who can have a normal life when everything's been dismantled? And you go out on your front lawn and everyone on the block is on their front lawn as well. And this really happened. The sun hadn't gone down yet after they announced about 18 Victoria. And Dan went outside to, I don't know, I guess just not be in our house, which has suddenly become suffocating and small. And everyone down our street, everyone out on their lawns, talking to each other, crying, hugging, like awareness that other people do in fact exist. And we're all in something together and it's bad. So solidarity.
About 4:30 the day after they announced this thing. And I'm supposed to be meeting Catherine at a Starbucks. Just for whatever fucking reason, I answer the phone after the kid in the cemetery were all fucking space dust, dude.
Stephen?
Hey.
Where have you been?
Don't start.
I've spent a week and a half begging.
I'll hang up.
Begging.
I'm hanging up.
Don't you dare. Don't you.
Then don't you, okay? What do you want?
You need to come home.
I can't do that.
You need to. You need to come home. Did you hear?
Asteroid? Yeah, I heard.
I mean, you can't just not come home when.
I feel like an ass saying it. I heard about the asteroid. I mean, sounds like some bad dialogue in a sci-fi movie.
Pointless for you to stay in Denver when Annie isn't even in the house anymore, and we're in the middle of this with Dad, who you never.
What exactly is the point of coming home, flying to Illinois, just to what? Exactly. And how do you know Annie isn't in the house anymore? Have you been talking to her? Fuck Catherine.
She called me
Like hell she did.
last week.
The world's ending, Kat. Maybe the subterfuge and emotional manipulation about my wife just to get me to.
She called about Dad, you narcissist asshole. Dad's dead. She called because that's what you do when you're attempting to approximate humanity. So come home.
I'm stood next to his headstone.
I hate you sometimes.
I can tell you picked it. It's simple, nice, not ostentatious.
When
Last night.
there's a Starbucks next to Dad's office on Hill. Tomorrow at 5. I'm off around 4:30, so you better be there.
Okay. So, what's Mid's deal with the Britannica? And she hung up. So now it's 4:30, and I've been drinking since at least 9 a.m. I stink. My clothes look like shit. I feel like death. And there's nothing in me, nothing that wants to get out of this uncomfortable hotel bed and go to a Starbucks. And I know the interaction's gonna suck. I know she's gonna try to cram 3 years worth of resentment into the time and space it takes to get a latte down. And I can't, I just can't. I don't want to explain myself, not to Catherine, because that's what she wants from everyone in her life. Explanations for why they are who they are, and that defense. I don't want to defend myself. Why I went to Denver, why I left when I was 18, the second I could get the fuck out. Why I never came back, why I don't have any tangible relationships with any of them. Why I sent her a stupid email instead of just giving her the benefit of my voice for a minute. Why I'm so drunk, I can't even feel my fingers and the sun's still out. Why an explanation even matters, because what will it change? It won't change how she feels. It won't change who I am. It won't make Dad more alive. And it won't make us less destined to be dead. So, what the fuck, right? CNN. The asteroid is an hour closer. The asteroid is now an hour and 10 minutes closer. Anderson Cooper, what do you think about extinction?
Well, I hooked up. A guy on Craigslist. Married guy in his 40s, never gets it at home, good looking, total bottom, can't host but can travel. We're all gonna die. Why not have some fun before we do? I mean, who could say no? He was mostly right about himself. In his 40s, check. Total bottom, check. Good looking, in an Armageddon scenario maybe, but we're still 3 weeks away, mon frere. You're just lucky you could be facing him. So we're done, and there's that required chit-chat moment, we shall feign interest in each other as humans so we don't feel totally cheap and pathetic about having sex with a stranger. And usually it's the, what do you do? Oh, that's interesting. Email me sometimes kind of thing. But he's lying there, this married guy I just fucked, and the unavoidable arises. I mean, we're fucking under the shadow of 18 Victoria, for God's sakes, and he says to me, you think we'll feel it? I think we'll feel it. I think it's going to hit us and everyone's going to feel it. It's going to be just like the glass of water in Jurassic Park. Boom, boom, boom. My eyes have adjusted to the darkness of the room so I can see him lying there. And in the darkness, he doesn't look half bad. He's sort of stretched out, one arm behind his head, the other moving back and forth across his belly, and he's looking at me, waiting for an answer. How long have you been married? Nervous laughter, and he adjusts himself up a little. Not what I asked you, and none of your business. Oh, I don't know, I said. Less than 24 hours ago, we were all given a death sentence, every one of us. I mean, we all knew we were going to die, but now it's like we can save the date. And, here you are, a married man, and I bet you have kids, right? Cute kids too, bright kids, a wife, in-laws, a perfectly acceptable life, and you're going to lose it. Horribly, terrifyingly. The earth will rain down fire and darkness on your wife and children, and you're here, naked in my bed, instead of there with them, and it's none of my business? Oh, fuck you. Get the fuck out of my house. And he's silent just for a few seconds. Fucking faggot. And he starts to put his clothes back on, angrily, like I'm the asshole, and I'm like, oh no, ma'am, you're the faggot, motherfucker, you're the faggot. And I don't know, I was in the middle of some Lifetime movie, like hysterics, just the absolute least restraint. And this poor guy, he just wanted to get fucked. He didn't intend to wander into this scene, and he's got all his clothes on finally, somewhere around the time I was making fun of the size of his dick. And he's at the front door, and he turns around and he says, you're dead too. You want to go out like an asshole? Fine, go out like an asshole, but you're just as dead as I am, buddy. And he's gone. And I'm kind of grossed out because, it's one of those moments that's just too on point, an eye roll moment in a movie. Who says shit like that? But then I'm also kind of standing alone in my living room, alone. And he's right. We're all going to be dead like my dad.
You can have the books.
I didn't see her text message until my married man had gone, and it had been like 3.5 hours. She was probably asleep. I called her anyway.
Do you have any idea what time it is?
Thank you.
It's 4:30 in the morning. Ben.
Thank you for the books. I know it's hard to admit when you're wrong.
Oh, Christ.
I mean, especially for you.
I'm giving you the books, but I'm not admitting a thing. And it's 4:30 in the morning.
Regardless, admission of whatever, whether real or just not, thank you. I appreciate that you're giving me the Britannica.
Is there anything else?
I just went apeshit on a married guy I hooked up with.
In Dad's house?
No, Catherine, in the middle of the front yard. Yes, in the house.
It's still his furniture, Ben. That's gross.
Who do you think I am?
Having sex on your father's bed?
Okay. Thank you. Now it's all even more fucked up because I hadn't thought of that. Thank you, Catherine.
I'm sorry. Is there anything else?
Have you heard from Steven? At all? I mean, like, anything.
No.
I mean, I know he's not present ever or participatory because that's who he is, who he decided to be. And I don't expect a whole lot from him, but I think there's something weird about him not calling or saying anything to either one of us. I mean, maybe not to you, Catherine, but he'd call me or something. It's a fucking asteroid. I mean, was that hurtful?
A little.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. I have to work in the morning.
It's not out of spite. The books.
Ever been in a conversation and you just tune out for a second, you're gone, and you snap back to it and you realize you just missed the most important part of the conversation, and they're asking you a question, you have no fucking idea what they're even talking about? This is my whole life. If I hear from him, I'll let you know.
Same here. Catherine.
No, you won't. You two never do. Good night.
Catherine, come on. Hey, Catherine. I text Stephen. Are you alive? A minute passes.
More or less.
Good. Then I went to bed.
I left work right at 4:30, headed over to the Starbucks. I get there about 10 minutes before 5. I ordered. The barista was the one I dread. Really chatty. Love to extend the customer service experience beyond the point where it is tolerable. And today, she was in rare form. So 18 Victoria, can you believe it? Can you really believe it? An asteroid, like some movie, but we're actually in it. There's a woman who came in earlier, said she's going to spend the next week sleeping with every man who gives her a second look. And I was like, you go, girl. Hilarious, right? What about you? Little last night of the world fun for you? And you want that with soy or? I had my conversation with Stephen planned out. Thank you for coming home to see Dad before the world ends. Fuck you for sending an email instead of actually speaking to me. Oh, he didn't leave you anything in the will. Deal with it. I hope you like Denver. Now disappear. Best of luck. And I love you, but I don't ever want to see or hear from you ever again. And it's what? 3 weeks? So that shouldn't be much of a problem. 4:50. 4:55, 5 o'clock.
The asteroid is now 2 hours closer. The asteroid is now 2 hours and 10 minutes closer. The asteroid is now 2 hours and 20 minutes closer.
5:10, 5:15, 5:20.
On Fox News, Bill O'Reilly is blaming the asteroid and the Democrats in the Senate.
5:30.
On Entertainment Tonight, they're showing a package on stars of the Grammys responding to 18 Victoria. Now I know what Kanye West thinks about extinction.
5:45. The barista girl asks if I want another latte on the house. Stood up, huh? Guess he's not going to be your date for the end of the world. Hilarious, right? No, seriously, I'll get you a free one if you want. Do you want? I get up. I go home.
I keep waiting for her to call. She doesn't. I move from vodka to bourbon. By the time the asteroid gets here, I won't feel a fucking thing.
It's August, the end of August, the last sliver of summer before we go back to school, the three of us, and it's terribly late, middle of the night, or maybe like 10 o'clock. I don't know, I was 13. And Stephen comes into my room and wakes me up. Catherine, you're awake. I know it. I know you were listening. In our house, it was hard not to listen. The walls were thin, and my father, well, he wasn't a quiet man. Stephen was about to turn 15, and I guess he reached that age when boys feel the need to face their fathers in some sort of, I don't know, dick measuring contest. Rite of passage into manhood or whatever. There was peace in the house. Then Stephen grew hair on his chest, and all of a sudden it was World War III. They went at it constantly. Stephen and my father, and my mother was gone. I mean, not dead, not divorced, just gone, absent from us emotionally and psychologically. She was this cold figure stalking the house, barely engaging with us. So there was just my dad to take everything out on. So pyrotechnics every afternoon around 4, and they'd last into the evening. My mother would drink. Ben would retreat into his room and his books. Stephen would push my father's buttons. My father would explode. The house would rock like a bomb went off. And I watched. They'd been fighting, my father and Stephen, something stupid, something Stephen had done, and it was late, and they were still in the thick of it in the downstairs living room so as not to wake mother or freak out Ben, but you could still hear it. coming up through the floor, rising water through the cracks and the splinters. Words, phrases, you fucking ungrateful, never were a father, malicious little bastard, get the fuck out of my house. She owned you like a lapdog. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Muffled connective tissue, but you get the idea. I was on the floor at one point, ear against the floorboard, straining to hear more clearly what they were fighting about this time. When I heard my mother's voice closer at the top of the stairs, quiet, you'll wake up Benji. Then it all stopped. Silence. Footsteps on the stairs, then Stephen suddenly in my room, yanking me off the floor, telling me we're going, pack a backpack, and that he was going to get Ben. There's really no other word to say it. He was crazy, crazed. His eyes, looking into them right then, they weren't his eyes. They were filled with something new, something a little scary, a little too demanding. So I packed a bag, and before I could leave the room to go to Ben's, my father was at the door. A shadow turned in on itself against the light of the hall. I couldn't really see his face, but I could tell he was staring at me. Silence, then, don't worry, I'll follow you. He won't take you very far. Then he was gone down the hall, and Stephen again, urgent, hurry up, we gotta go. Then into Ben's room, who looked out of it, scared, shoving a Madonna tape into his backpack. Down the stairs, each of us tugged along by Stephen. Out the back door, into the nighttime, the woods, the flashlights, and he's telling Ben, we're going to Antarctica. We won't have to go to school there. We'll have a house made of ice when we get there. This insane... Fine. Drag us into the woods behind our house. It's an adventure, whatever. But he was so focused on Ben, telling him we were going to live in Antarctica. We'd be safe there. We'd be happy there. And he was going to be the one to save us. Ben was believing it. I couldn't. Nobody lives in Antarctica, Stephen. It's not inhabited by people. Maybe some scientists in a tent somewhere, but you don't live there. Polar bears live there, and penguins, but not many. It's uninhabitable. Why would we go to Antarctica? And it was like you could see his heart breaking. And Stephen kneels down to Benji, gets right up in his face, holds the flashlight up between them so they look like ghosts or monsters, and he says, he's going to tell you I'm crazy or wrong because he wants us to stay stuck here forever, die here. But I'd take us to Antarctica, Benji. I promise I would. Not me. That's what I thought right then. He chooses Benji, not me. From then on, it was always them and me. Then Dad's there, just like he said he would be, and we're home again. Before I fell asleep that night, Dad in the doorway again, the shadow turning in on itself, and he said, I'm sorry, kiddo. His voice, something in it like, I pretended to be asleep.
This morning, I was looking at this interactive infographic on the New York Times website. They, whoever they are, the people that decide how the rest of us find out everything we need to know about asteroids and extinction events, who are they? How did they get to be they? I wonder. These people decided about a week after the big announcement to tell us finally what's really going to happen, what it really means, and what they're planning to do about it. And the Times turned it into this cool infographic, interactive. You can spin the globe with your mouse and change the projected impact site. They, the vaunted they, have determined the real impact site is somewhere in India. And you can double click and see a little illustrated 18 Victoria hit the Earth. Boom. And then see all the repercussions in these cool drop-down menus. Well, the big news, they can't do shit. 18 Victoria is going to leave a big dent in the bumper, so to speak, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. We've got 2 weeks. Then, boom.
There's a point, one would assume, that the body's reserves of water could be technically replaced by vodka. If you drink enough of it. I'm working on it. I showered in a week. I've eaten whatever I could get delivered or yanked from the vending machine down the hall. I stink. The room stinks. And the only time I leave my bed and the endless 24-hour cable news networks is to go to church. There's a little storefront church across the street from my hotel. Used to be a gas station. Some fundamentalist nut jobs turned it into a church. The Cradle, it's called. And let me fucking tell you, NASA tells the world there's a space rock going to kill us all in 3 weeks. Jesus just got a whole lot of new friends. This place is packed almost 24 hours a day. The guy who runs it, his name is Ted or Tim or something, monosyllabic with a T, told me one afternoon, "Friend, I'm ashamed to say it, but I've never been happier. Look around. This is the Lord in action." Bullshit. It's desperation in action, fear in action. Nobody wants to die. Of course they'll turn to the man who's got everlasting life. I go to the Cradle every day. And I mean it every fucking day, because this Tim, Tom, Ted, whatever, this storefront messiah, he's an inspirational guy. He gives the same sermon about 10 times a day. The room's always full, no matter what time I go. And Tim, Tom, Ted's talking about facing your fate. Jesus, he says, all preach like, Jesus didn't fight his inevitable death on the cross. He walked right into it, welcomed it, recognized it as his own. That's what this is, this Tim, Tom, Ted. This asteroid, this extinction event, it's our inevitable cross.
Okay, so per the New York Times, 18 Victoria hits. Boom. Because of its size and speed, the impact will rip into the Earth with such force that the top 10 miles of the Earth's crust, 10 miles, will rip up, peel off, raining down everywhere in fire and stone and earth, and start to make its way across the entire surface of the planet, like peeling an orange. And that's not really the worst part. The worst part, the part that feels inconceivable, is that the process, the peeling away of the crust of the Earth, will consume every square inch of the globe within 2 hours. 18 Victoria hits, civilization gets peeled away like a bad sunburn, and Earth becomes nothing but a charred, burning rock floating in space. In less time than it takes to watch a movie.
2 a.m. and I'm sitting in one of the folding chairs at the Cradle. I'm the only person here. Well, me and Tim Tom Ted, who looks like shit. Tired, worn down. The man's been spreading the good news around the clock for a week now. I'm surprised he can even stand. He comes over and sits next to me. "What's your name?" "Lucas," I tell him. "Well, hello, Lucas. I'm Pastor Mitchell. You've been here every day." "Yeah, I'm living across the street. Temporary situation." Everything these days is a temporary situation. It's a good joke, but nobody laughs. The only kind of man who comes to a place like this every day for a week is the kind of man who's looking for something. And I'm thinking, fuck you, Tim Tom Ted. I'm not the one of these desperate sheeple you've got coming in here hoping Jesus is going to fly from his cloud in heaven and push the asteroid out the way. I'm an educated person, you fuckwit. And you're touched by an angel dialogue here isn't going to get shit from me. Maybe I am looking for something. He lights up. Dumbass. That's a good thing you're here. Jesus always has what you're looking for. Jesus is a storybook character, and the people who come here, spineless fucks, and you're preaching the abundance of the Lord in some barely renovated gas station like this matters. And none of it's real. None of your life has any consequence. There's no God, no heaven. Soon we're all just going to stop. The only reason I came here is to remind myself what it's like to be in the same room with another human being. It sucks. I get up, head for the door, and right before I'm out the door, closes behind me. I hear Tim, Tom, Ted call out, "God bless, Lucas."
I'm in the middle of sending 18 Victoria to Kansas on the Times website when Catherine calls.
Are you watching the news?
Hello, Catherine. How are you?
People are losing their minds.
What's your least favorite city in Kansas? I'm about to blow it up.
They've had to lock down India. I mean, I can't even conceive of how you do that. Lock down an entire country, but they've done it, and people are losing their shit. And Kansas, what about Kansas?
New York Times infographic interactive. Least favorite city in Kansas?
Topeka. They're going to evacuate India and a few of the surrounding countries. I mean, they're going to evacuate an entire region of the world. Put people, I don't even know where they're going to put them. But this is millions of people crammed into
It won't really matter, dead in India, dead somewhere else, we're all dead.
I don't like this caustic thing.
Realistic, Catherine, I'm a realist.
It's disturbing.
I'm not going to pretend, well, of course it's disturbing.
I've had enough death to last me a lifetime. I don't need it from
This whole thing is disturbing, and there's only 2 weeks left. I think you can manage.
Steven's in town.
What?
He's been in town for a week. He was supposed to see me.
When? He didn't tell me he was in town.
And he didn't. He did the thing he does, the thing I hate, I'm going to be a human being, Catherine. No, seriously, I am, but not really. No, I'm not. And if you could just, for once.
I was joking.
Interact with me in a way that isn't vicious or mean-spirited.
You can't take seriously
or snide.
Everything I say. What do you want exactly, Catherine? What, like Hallmark Channel moments all of a sudden because we have to now be completely different people, pretending our lives before now didn't completely suck spectacularly, and continues to suck, continues, Catherine, despite the current global crisis, despite our wanting things to be different, despite everything. I mean, is that what you think should be happening now?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I don't think we're equipped for that. They're evacuating India?
And the surrounding regions that are expected to be catastrophically impacted by the asteroid when it hits the Earth, says the NASA guy on CNN.
I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie sometimes. I shouldn't be saying these kinds of things in casual conversation.
When he calls you.
If he calls me.
When.
If he does, he does. And I don't need you to manage my adult non-relationship with my older brother.
Fine.
You can get how you get. I don't care. But what he does to you.
It's more than what he does to me.
Does to you. And fine, that may be true, but you can't manage it, okay? I don't feel the same need to hate him as you do.
Why? He left you too, Ben. Just like he left me, like he left all of us. But you, why?
What's your least favorite city in Texas? Let's fuck up the South.
Ben.
Least favorite city in Texas.
Ben.
Least favorite city in Texas.
Houston.
Houston it is. Boom.
I'm terrified of what will happen when the asteroid hits. People are, they're already losing their minds. It seems like MSNBC is running a 24-hour stream of the completely insane things people are doing since the end of the world is coming. There was a riot in Chicago by this band of people calling themselves the Survivalists. In a week, apparently, crazy people can still organize and plan riots. These crazy people who believe if we dismantle the system, we have a better shot of saving ourselves from extinction. And they've shut down downtown Chicago, like literally shut it down, because there were thousands of them, thousands of rioters descending upon Chicago. Signs and guns and stones and plate glass windows, homemade bombs into state and federal run buildings, people injured, dead, military intervention to stop it. And in the last few days, they're reporting a trend of this extremist religious militia, which I don't think Jesus signed off on, a militia, but then what do I know? We were raised Unitarian, who's going around in cities across the country enacting what they're calling righteous murders to appease the Lord and to encourage him to save the earth. They've killed doctors performing abortions, the woman who ran for the Denver branch of the ACLU, the leading Democrat in the Tennessee Senate, 2 drag queens at a gay bar in Austin. Just any public face of their fears. Apparently, when it comes down to it, the best parts of ourselves dies before the rest of us.
4 a.m. The cradle still has a light on. Tim Tom Ted is there alone. Once I'm inside, Tim Tom Ted just looks at me and smiles. What can I do for you, Lucas? I'm silent for a moment. Which God do you believe in? He raises an eyebrow. I don't know what you mean, Lucas. I want to know which God you believe in. The warm, fuzzy one of the New Testament or the crazy, wrathful motherfucker of the Old Testament? Which God do you believe in? He doesn't say anything. Not for a while. Then, Lucas, the point of believing in God is knowing you're in good hands, no matter which one he turns out to be. And Tim Tom Ted had this little flash of doubt pass over his face. This made me like Tim Tom Ted. This made me respect him. I've got more vodka than a Russian nightclub over in my hotel room. You drink? Who doesn't these days? Tim Tom Ted, who turns out his name is Richard, drank with me till the sun came up.
It was 6:30 in the morning when Steven called.
Ben?
Who the fuck is this?
Your brother. Hello?
6:30 in the morning.
That too early?
It's 6:30 in the morning.
I'm sorry. I haven't slept. How are you?
What do you want?
Did Catherine tell you?
Yes, she did, and I'm a little pissed off at you, Steven.
I know. I'm sorry.
You come into town and Catherine gets to... I mean, I stuck up for you.
I know.
I'm the one who didn't turn his back. Well, then if you know, then why'd you let her know you were here and not me? And why the fuck haven't I seen you? Where have you been? A week?
Been around. I was just going to sneak into town to see Dad's grave and then head back to Denver, but...
You've been to Dad's grave?
Yes.
Good.
You know, but then the whole asteroid thing...
Mom didn't come to the funeral or to any of it, so you hurt a lot of people who really cared about you for nothing. Because she didn't even come. Catherine is still totally clueless, so whatever she says to us is because she's just angry and upset about Dad and you being gone for so long, and she doesn't understand it. So if you're hiding from us...
I'm not hiding from you.
...or whatever, then what are you doing? Why haven't I seen you?
Ben, what?
You're my brother. The world is ending. You've been here...
I can't. I know you don't understand it, but I can't.
Dad didn't leave you anything. I don't know if Catherine told you that.
I'm not surprised.
But I fought Catherine to let me keep the encyclopedias. The Britannica. I was going to ship them to you in Denver before. So If you want them, you can just come to the house and get them and bring them wherever you're staying, or just, you should just come to the house. Stay with me at the house.
I can't do that.
Stephen,
Yeah, I have to
wait,
bye, Benji.
Stephen, Stephen.
When I was 8, my father bought me a set of Encyclopedia Britannica. We had this thing. He and I would grab a volume, go to his office, his home office, and we crack open the volume to some article, whatever it was, and read it, talk about it. I'd ask 1,000 questions. He'd tell me all this stuff, whatever he knew. This was our thing. When you're a kid, you don't need the vocabulary to describe it, to know that something is wrong. And there was something wrong with us, our family, my mom and dad, really. Because all things start at the wellhead, right? Sins of the father, sins of the mother too. They should get their due, and it trickles on down in little streams and rivers and floods, down to the children, to us. And my dad, when I was little, when the three of us were little, was a good parent. My mother was like a panther, stalking around the perimeters of our life, eyeing each of us with disdain or mistrust, waiting for the kill, I guess. She said yes to some life that she didn't really want with my dad, and he took care of her. There were mental disorders in her family, both sides, going back a long way, sins of her fathers and mothers bearing out in her. And so she was never well, and she blamed us. And this is all, I mean, who can tell you her side of the story but her? And she's not here to explain herself. And all any of us have got is what we think, what we gather, what we cobble together out of what we saw and did and were told. So I could explain to you all day why I think my mother decided to fuck me when I was 15, but who really knows? It happened. She was cold. And then one day she was not. And it became confusing and wrong. So, of course, I decided to hate my dad. That switch just turned, and he was the enemy. My mother, my brilliant, devious, deranged, damaged mother, decided one night to tell my dad everything. And all hell breaks loose downstairs. You fucking ungrateful, never were a father, a malicious little bastard, haven't been a man in years, get the fuck out of my house, she owns you like a lap dog, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. My mother standing at the top of the stairs with a drink in her hand, a smile on her face. And I'm 15. 15. And this is like completely feeling like fiction. It's the unreality of it. Like, what the fuck do you do? And my father and I are snarling like dogs at each other, rabid. And mother calls down from the top of the stairs, quiet, you'll wake up Benji. Benji. Ben. And all of a sudden, it's like the world opened and I could see what would be coming. And I refused it. Refused it. Not Benji. I ran upstairs, woke Catherine, told her we were going. My heart leaping out of my chest. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. And then Benji's room, thinking to myself, make it a game. Make it a game. He'll want to play. So I told him we're going to Antarctica because a few days before I'd done the encyclopedia thing with Benji that my dad used to do with me, and we'd read the article in Antarctica. So fine, Antarctica. We're moving to Antarctica. Then I told him to bring his 5 favorite things, give him something to focus on. It's a game. It's a puzzle, an adventure. And he's done, and we're out the door, the three of us, into the woods behind our house. And I had no plan. In 15, how could you have a plan? But we were going somewhere, anywhere, because my mother was a threat, and my father couldn't save us. And we only had each other, the three of us. I'm starting to believe in it. And the more I talk to Benji about it, the more I lie to him about where we're headed, I start to believe my own teenage bullshit. Because maybe there he'll be safe. Maybe Catherine will never find out, and maybe there could somehow not be who I was in that house. I could erase that part of me that ruined everything, that stained everything, that and Catherine destroys it all. Nobody lives in Antarctica, Stephen. It's not inhabited by people. Maybe some scientists in a tent somewhere, but you don't live there. Polar bears live there, and penguins, but not many. It's uninhabitable. Why would we go to Antarctica? Boom. You can't run away from it, Stephen. There's that voice in my head telling the truth. You can't run from it, Stephen. It's in you wherever you go. And how can you protect anyone from disaster when you're carrying the disaster inside you? I kneel down to Benji, get right up in his face, hold the flashlight up between us, making us ghosts or monsters. He's going to tell you I'm crazy or wrong because he wants us to stay stuck here forever, die here. But I'd take us to Antarctica, Benji. I promise I would. Then flashlights, my dad, he followed us. Catherine cries, runs into his arms. Benji gladly goes where Dad tells him to. The adventure was fun, but it's over. My dad just looks at me as if to say, here's your chance, kid. Run. If you need to, run. I don't. Benji's up in bed, and so's Catherine. My mother's passed out in the bedroom upstairs, and my father's waiting for me in the kitchen. He's got a bottle of bourbon and 2 glasses. Fills one, slides it across the counter for me. Here. I'm 15. Here. I take the glass. I drink it. My first time tasting bourbon. It stings like hell. We're just going to erase tonight, kiddo. That's my dad's solution. We're just going to race tonight, pretend none of it ever happened, and you just go back to being a kid, okay? And I'll try to take care of your mother better. So, no harm, no foul. Okay, Stephen? I don't know if this happens to everybody or just the kids who are lucky, like me, but there's a moment when you realize no matter what you do, you're alone. Just you and the whole universe. No one is ever going to save you.
3 days. The asteroid hits in 3 days.
They evacuated India. Can you fucking believe it? They evacuated India, and they spread out the country's population across Europe and North and South America. Not that it matters. Everyone will be dead in 2 hours after it hits, but I guess, I don't know. They wanted everyone to enjoy extinction the same way or something. In the last few days, most of the business of the world has come to a halt. Essential things continue, the things we need to stay alive until it's all through: power, food, internet, cops. There's a sort of insane, sort of comforting decision that seems to have been made by everyone everywhere, that we should all attempt to carry on like nothing is happening for as long as we can. Some symbol of resistance, resilience, or some kind of, I don't know, balm, I guess, against the inevitable end. But most things are done. All mass transit's been stopped. No planes, no trains. All police have barricaded major roadways, so most cities are locked down. Essentially, where you are is where you'll be when the asteroid hits. I mean, suicides have gone through the fucking roof. I know at least 10 people who've killed themselves. Can't handle the thought of dying because of 18 Victoria, so they take pills or a gun or whatever and end it. And I kind of think they're idiots because seriously, we get to see what the end of the world is like. And if I'm going to die, I want to fucking do it in the coolest way possible. So, sort of a weird place to be. There are tents in the downtown green space where Indian immigrants are camped out. Military trucks run through neighborhoods directing people to websites with instructions for Impact Day. And there are still people who have to get up and go work a shift at Whole Foods or Starbucks. I mean, the unreality of it.
My husband left me. Last week, Dan comes home from work and he says, we need to talk. He sits me down. He says, Kat, this isn't working. This marriage isn't working. It hasn't worked for years and there's so little time left. And I feel like I need to do this before I die. Otherwise, I die not being true to myself and my heart. And there's this woman I met. I mean, who leaves their wife a week before the end of the world? And he moved out. I'm in our house alone. He's sleeping with some Indian woman he met at the green space, and I'm starting to think that extinction will be a relief.
18 Victoria will hit Earth at 2:37 a.m. our time, middle of the night. And that's good because I don't sleep anyway. People are planning all-night vigils all around the country to celebrate it. Well, celebrate is the wrong word. And memorialize isn't really quite right, but mark, I guess, to mark the impact event. This is going to be maudlin. Candles and music, signs and crying, hugging, all kinds of worst sort of public display. Grief should be, and I don't really know what people are grieving because we're not going to feel a thing. That's what they're telling us anyway. We're on the other side of the world. It'll happen. This giant rock will slam into Earth and we'll just be ticking off another minute on the clock. 120 minutes, 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes.
I imagine that it will look like a tidal wave, only it'll be fire and rock and buildings and bodies and cars and belongings and lives. A tidal wave coming over the horizon. At first, just a shimmer of red and orange in the distance, then taller and taller and taller. Then the street starts to peel up outside my window, houses and cars and mailboxes carried up in the air, the other side of the world raining down in pieces in my front yard, and then me lifted up as well into the wave, into another part of the end of everything, ripping through the next street and the next and the next.
Antarctica. The night after Stephen called me, I took out the volume with the Antarctica article. He had read it to me once. Antarctica, fifth in size among the world's continents. Its landmass is almost wholly covered by a vast ice sheet, lying almost concentrically around the South Pole. Antarctica, the name of which means opposite to the Arctic, is the southernmost continent, a circumstance that has had momentous consequences for all aspects of its character. I text Stephen, hey, let's go to Antarctica. It's covered in ice. Maybe we'll survive there. He texts me back.
3 days, 2:37 a.m. Dad's grave. Want to hang?
I go to Starbucks. Can you believe the Starbucks is still open? 3 days till the end of the world, and you still have to pay $4 for a latte. Bastards. And the barista I hate is working the bar. She's less chatty this time, less social. Actually, she looks like she's on the verge of tears the entire time she's making my latte, and she hands me my drink and she says, "Did he ever show up?" For a moment, I didn't know what she was talking about, just gave her this baffled look. "The guy who stood you up, your end of the world date, did he ever show up?" "Ah, Stephen. No, he didn't. My boyfriend killed himself 2 days ago. He couldn't handle it." And we just stood there for a minute. Nobody says a thing. I put $5 in her tip jar. This is bullshit. All of it. The world makes sense to some people, and I hate them. I have always hated them because for me, for us, my family, nothing has ever made sense. Nothing. The whole of it has been this incomprehensible struggle to just scrape by, to just tolerate each other, to find some way to live together without annihilating each other. And that didn't work. We imploded. And just when you think there might be peace, when my mother finally disappears for good and my father dies, and you think there just might be some way to mend the three of us into something that looks like a family, there's a space rock hurtling through space, and it's gonna hit us like, fuck you, universe. Fuck you, God. Fuck you, whatever set everything in motion. Because the deliciousness of the irony is not lost on me. That rock's been headed for us for years. We've been asking for it. Extinction. Since we couldn't finish the job ourselves, we got a little help from above.
Catherine calls me and lays on this thick layer of bullshit about the asteroid being divine justice.
That rock's been headed for us for years, Ben. We've been asking for it. Extinction. Since we couldn't finish the job ourselves, we got a little help from above.
Oh, God, Catherine.
Don't you feel?
No, I don't feel that.
I don't understand it, Ben.
Catherine.
This is not logical.
Of course it isn't. It's an asteroid. It's disaster porn on the television 24/7. It's completely absurd. It's completely fucked up. So you can either lose your shit like everyone else in the world, which is what seems to be happening right now, or you can calm the fuck down, take a moment, and just get on with it.
Why won't he see me? I've called him a few times in the last few weeks, asking him to just, for a few minutes, just a hello, a hug, a stupid handshake. And I'm not asking for a lot from him, Ben. And he can't even offer me that. Why?
I don't know.
You know. You've always known. That's part of the reason why we've never gotten along the way we should, right? I'm right, aren't I? You know. You just won't tell me.
Can't tell you.
Semantics.
Truth, I promised.
Oh, damn you and Stephen and your little...
I promised. I'm never going to tell you, Catherine, and Stephen won't either. Dad's dead, so he can't fuck with your head. Count yourself lucky and let it go.
Will I see you?
When?
Before.
No, I know. before I mean, when? What time?
Where do you have to be these days?
Sarcasm?
Truth. Tomorrow, maybe?
Tomorrow. I went to Catherine's house and we had a very nice, totally awkward conversation.
I made coffee, a cake.
Weirdly, she made this chocolate cake
I had stuff to get rid of in my pantry.
and we talked. It was nice to see her.
It was terrible.
She was civil and kind and like the Catherine I knew as a kid.
His face stopped looking like his face.
She told me about Dan and his Indian immigrant girlfriend.
I hardly ever saw him, even whenever we lived in the same city.
She told me about the weird Starbucks barista with the dead boyfriend.
He's my brother, but I don't know a thing about him.
I told her about my married guy. Embarrassing.
He's as much a mystery to me as everything else. My blood.
And it was almost like we were family. Right before I left, she asked out of the blue,
Did it happen to both of you? Whatever it is, the thing, the stupid thing. Did it happen to both of you? Or Dad? Or...
So Stephen left when he was 18. The second he could leave the house, he was gone. Before he left, he drove us to McDonald's, bought lunch, and told me everything. Mom, Dad, the bourbon, no harm, no foul, okay, Stephen? Antarctica? And he made me promise two things.
Promise me, if Mom even comes close to anything, you'll go. Don't ever tell Catherine. Protect her, Benji.
I left Catherine's house without telling her a thing.
He left. I told him, call me on Impact Day. He laughed. Said it was weird that we were making it sound like a holiday. And I said, well, it kind of will be. After he left, I sent Stephen a text. I don't hate you and I don't blame you. Call me. This time he responded, which shocked the hell out of me.
Thank you. I love you, Kat. Even though I suck at it. I'll be calling, so best of luck.
I replied, you too, Stephen. One year we took this trip, the five of us, to Minneapolis. My dad had some sort of work thing to do, a conference or something, so we all just tagged along. It was summer, we were free, and we weren't the vacation types to begin with, so this was an adventure to us. And we were young. Ben was maybe 3, and Dad was young and happy, and Mom loved him, and everything felt like a life. I miss that. The night before Impact Day, 3 a.m., Ben left hours ago. The house is incredibly quiet. My dad taught English, so I'm the kind of girl who can quote T.S. Eliot. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper. I opened the bag I brought home from the CVS. I take every pill in all 10 bottles. I tuck myself into bed. Boom.
Hey,
Benji.
nobody calls me Benji anymore.
And it's very good to see you too.
call her.
Benji,
It's Ben, and if you don't call her, I'm going to leave.
don't threaten me.
We had to live without you for 20 years. It sucked, Steven. It sucked hard, so you can make a phone call. You owe her that.
Catherine, this is Steven. Call me.
Are you fucking kidding me? That's it?
What?
Hey, you're the worst. Oh, seriously.
Answer. God, you're like a grown-up.
Like a grown-up. Yeah, funny. That's actually how Catherine would describe me too. Like a grown-up.
I mean, you're like grown.
Approximating one, not actually. Yeah, I mean, it's been 20 years. You look pretty good.
Thanks.
And I sort of expected you'd look like shit.
Oh, you're just a mess of compliments tonight, aren't you?
I figured you'd have been holed up in some hotel room somewhere drinking yourself into oblivion.
You are good.
Considering you look pretty good.
So, how about that asteroid? Huh?
I know, right?
Go figure.
Yeah, you can't imagine the hell it was getting across town. The vigil.
What a clusterfuck.
I know.
Maudlin bullshit.
Exactly.
Go home. Spend your time with people you know and care about, not 1,000 strangers.
Stop clogging up the streets for the rest of us trying to go extinct with some dignity. I fucking missed you.
Me too, Benji. You want a drink? Listen, about Dad's funeral.
Look, Steven, I don't care. I don't want to talk about Dad. I don't want to talk about what happened with you. And I don't want to talk about anything, really. As far as I'm concerned, we could just get drunk in a cemetery and wait for the end of the world.
Did you make it out okay? Just tell me you made it out okay.
Mostly, I guess. Yeah.
Good. Well, motherfuck.
What?
We missed it.
What time is it?
2:54.
Oh, fuck.
Did you hear anything or?
Not a thing.
God damn it. So what happens next?
2 hours. About. Then.
Come on, Benji. Let's go to Antarctica.
End of play.